imagine little DoA, little 11-year-old DoA watching this movie, thinking he's going to watch a Super Mario Brothers film, and then seeing this like middle-aged man trying to fish a piece of crystal out of this large woman's ample cleavage and just being like, I didn't sign up for this.
This week on Nerd Legion, I know you guys have been waiting for this one. We decided, why do the new season of Stranger Things, you know? It's not really strange enough. But why would we want views or to be topical or relevant? No. What we need to do is go back in time over 30 years to the 1993 Bob Hoskins, John Leguizamo, Dennis Hopper Super Mario Brothers movie and discuss that. I asked DoA, I said, hey, look, our Warcraft movie episode was surprisingly popular. So what do you think we should do? And he said, the Super Mario Brothers movie, which, you know, DoA, you weren't wrong. It was the first live action American video game movie. So it has a place in history. There was not an American.
Was it really?
Yes. Yes. It was the first American live action film based on a video game IP.
I'm trying to remember what year Street Fighter came out.
It was after this. I think 95.
Okay.
If I had to guess.
I think you're probably right, but that's the only one I can think of that makes me kind of wonder. It was 1994. Okay.
Yeah,
it was I believe it was 94. Yeah. It was 1 year later. Okay. I was close.
So I have to say, guys,
I just got to fact check. Don't believe everything you hear on the internet.
If you've never heard of this in the light of the new Chris Pratt animated Mario movie, this movie caused Nintendo so much generational trauma that they didn't even consider making another Mario movie until just a year or two ago. It took them 30 years to recover from the grief of having made the Super Mario Brothers movie in 1993. And why is that? How bad could it possibly be? Well, I think you'll find out very shortly that it could be terrible, even with some extremely accomplished and famous actors, arguably very good production design, because it also has nothing to do with Super Mario Brothers as you might know it. In fact, it is a dystopian cyberpunk multi-dimensional extravaganza, and basically just has some Mario terms thrown in there randomly, but really does very little with the actual intellectual property of Mario even at the time. It is deeply confusing.
Yeah, I mean, so they are, Mario and Luigi are plumbers from Brooklyn, but their family relationship is called into question. Are they really brothers? Not really. It seems like Bob Hoskins as Mario raised John Leguizamo as Luigi's Luigi in the movie. So they're kind of brothers, but he's kind of a dad too. And it's just a whole mess. Why couldn't they just be brothers? It's the Super Mario Brothers movie. I don't know, but they decided to just, this movie is all about subverting expectations, Monty. It's funny when you make a Mario Brothers movie and the majority of the Mario Brothers content is in sort of Easter eggs versus the actual, main content of the film. The only actual thing in the movie that looks like something from the Mario games is the Ba-Bomb. The only other thing that is referential really to any Nintendo product at all is the fact that they use spray painted, Super Scope 6s from Super Nintendo with a couple extra doodlies or dealies or whatever's glued onto them as bazookas in the movie. But outside of that, there's really nothing related to Nintendo. And the production of this movie could be a whole episode in itself. Like, there's just so much insanity that we'll get into with that. And it is, watching this movie again, I remember it being bad. We'll start with let's start and go back and visit our first 1993 Super Mario Brothers movie experiences. We'll go back to the beginning. So I'll go back to my beginning with that one. So the year was 1994. I didn't see it when it was in theaters, but on our birthdays in my family growing up, and my birthday's in March, we were allowed to rent a video. Back when people rented videos. And back when there were video rental stores in existence. And so I knew this was coming out. I was a big Mario fan, a big video game fan, and because the internet didn't exist yet, and because all we had was like network television, we didn't have cable or anything like that. All I had seen was, I think, maybe one trailer. I may have seen nothing at all of it, actually. I may have just known existence on a couple pictures in like the newspaper, back when people had newspapers that they read with their eyeballs physically. But so I rented this video and I watched it, and I remember distinctly, I still very much remember just two distinct things. One, why is everything so dirty in this movie? Everything is just dirty and gross and just like grotesque, and like why is it this way? Why is a Mario Brothers film just filthy? And I don't mean like filthy content wise. I mean it's just like this movie sat in like the back of somebody's refrigerator for like 20 years in a landfill, and nobody opened the door until now, and they're opening up and there's the Mario Brothers film, right? That's what this movie looks like. That's an analogy of it. And then the other thing is, this movie has nothing to do with Mario Brothers. That was the other thing that I remember thinking. And I don't remember thinking it was really like bad at the time. I just remember being like disappointed and confused. I was just like, what is this? It says Mario Brothers, but they're wearing opposite colors for 90% of the film. Luigi's wearing red, Mario's wearing green, until like the very end where they inexplicably have Mario game-esque suits. And everything is dirty. So confusion and filthiness. Those are the two things I remember from my first viewing as a young person on it would have been, I guess, my 11th birthday, watching the Mario Brothers film.
I don't really
unforgettable experience.
I saw this film due to its infamy, I think probably in the late 90s or early 2000s. So it was a long time after the movie came out. Definitely, I think when I was a teenager. And so obviously by that point, I knew that this was a very odd representation of Mario. And I think I watched it one time, thought, wow, this is really strange. And then never watched it again up until this point in time. But I watched it with my wife, who had never seen it and didn't know it existed.
Oh, no. She didn't know it existed?
And I did. Here's the thing, though. I didn't tell her what it was. So I literally turned on the movie. And you have to understand that this movie starts with a 8-bit dinosaur killing sequence. So it's like video game art of the dinosaurs getting hit by a meteor, and then all of a sudden it just says Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah. She must have been so confused. I wish I could have seen this.
I was laughing very hard. But that's the experience of this movie is you turn on, you acquire yourself the Super Mario Brothers movie, which if you are having trouble finding it, I know DoA said he watched the Rift Tracks version to me, but
that's okay. So funny enough, so let me go into that a little bit. So currently in North America, there's only one streaming site on the internet that you can legally watch the movie, and I say legally because there's plenty of ways to watch it less than legally, we'll say, but the only way to watch it legally is that I could find as part of a streaming service is Rift Tracks, which does a bunch of funny commentaries to movies. They're some of the former Mystery Science Theater 3000 commentators that did that. They're great. But and I had seen the movie plenty of times without commentary, so I was like, oh, we'll watch it with that. So I saw it, but they have very funny commentary with that. But I searched before I went to Rift Tracks across every other streaming service, and it's just not there. And I looked it up, and it's because Nintendo has really tried their best to just expunge the existence of this movie from the internet. Yeah, it really has been. It really has been. And so they just won't give any of these streaming services the rights to have it on there.
That said,
so it's hard to find.
That said, they did release a 4K restoration DVD in early 2023, which you can purchase. So if you would like to buy the Super Mario Brothers 4K restoration, and you can buy used DVDs.
I don't want to see that in 4K.
Amazon. And also, the way I watched it was on the Internet Archive. We'll put the archive link in the YouTube description for you guys. It does have the whole movie, and it's up to somebody to take it down from the Internet Archive. If you are especially masochistic or sadistic, if you're trying to inflict this on somebody else, then there is also on Internet Archive an extended cut with an additional 20 minutes of footage that includes the Spike and Iggy rap in the Boom Boom bar. Which, by the way, if you haven't watched this movie, that sentence tells you all you need to know about this film. But there is that as well on the Internet Archive. So it's on archive.org. You can watch the whole movie, the original film theatrical release, or the extended cut if you are particularly deranged. But yes, this movie starts with the premise itself has absolutely nothing to do with Mario. I thought, maybe they'd take just some premise from Mario, but what this really feels like,
it's very loose. I feel like it is grounded in the Mario Brothers mythos, so to speak, but obviously it takes an enormous amount of liberties. But go on.
I mean, to be fair, this feels more like Chrono Trigger from a conceptual perspective.
Hey. Wow, that's a statement.
No, it does. Okay. Basically, in Chrono Trigger, it's time travel, right? But you could have an interdimensional travel where the characters are moving into a futuristic dinosaur dimension. Like that actually feels more like a Chrono Trigger concept than a Mario concept.
Sure. Okay.
But
as time travel, I guess. Okay. Go on.
It also has a post-apocalyptic dystopia. Which
is, of course, our regular world, 1993 New York.
In an alternate dimension. But yes, so the concept of this is that it is very badly explained. So at one point in time, 65 million years ago, the meteor hits the Earth and kills the dinosaurs. And this also, apparently, according to this movie, causes the Earth to split into two different dimensions, one of which the mammals take over, where Mario and Luigi are from, and the other one, the dinosaurs take over and somehow evolve into things that look like people.
Humanoid.
People, effectively. So, but they're not, we're just told they're not mammals, even though they look like people. And you get into a more like cyberpunk dystopia with some loose dinosaur elements. And
they lay eggs.
They do. That's true.
People come out of eggs in this universe, so that is true. Reptilian in a way. Yeah.
And you're greeted at the start of this movie with a baby being born from an egg with a fragment of the meteorite. This becomes Daisy. She was the princess of the other dimension. She is sent through the dimension with the meteorite, because we find out later that if the last piece of the meteorite, the shard of the meteorite, goes into the original meteorite to make it whole, that will combine the dimensions and allow King Koopa to take over the mammalian dimension. Does this make any sense? No.
Does he have a plan for taking over? He just seems to think that he's going to be in charge when the dimensions merge, which I think is kind of short-sighted of him. If
he also doesn't
really
have an army or anything, because he has to do everything himself. So it is very confusing how he thinks he's going to conquer the other dimension.
There really doesn't seem to be any indication that he has the ability to take over Earth, aside from like the de-evolution kind of thing. But like, that's like one gun for like one person at a time, and like good luck, Mr. Hopper. Like I don't think you're gonna be able to do that to billions of people in your lifetime. Even you're not even gonna get through New York City in your lifetime. But hey, props to him for having a dream. Shoot big, King Koopa.
So basically, Mario and Luigi are now Brooklyn Italian-American plumbers, because they decided to make them American for American audience relatability reasons.
Well, no, I mean, Mario and Luigi are supposed to be from Brooklyn. Like, that was in the cartoon, too.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, in the video game mythos, I think they're just from a city,
Yeah.
But in the cartoon and stuff, too, and in, like, even the new Mario Brothers movie that just came out, the animated one, they're also plumbers from New York. So that is kind of like a well-established sort of thing that dates back, I think, pre-Mario live action.
I do think that was specifically done for the American audience, though.
Sure. Yeah, why not? I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, two Italian plumber dudes, and where are you going to put them? Italy? No. Put them in Brooklyn.
It does make for more colorful characters that speak English, so I will
sure,
agree with that.
Yeah.
So they find the dimension because Princess Daisy, who was the orphan who came from the other dimension into ours with her magic rock, is now a paleontology student digging up dinosaur bones in New York. Not really a place you do that, but it's never really explained. Doesn't have to be.
Not too often.
And that's where they discover the portal between worlds and end up getting, they tried the people, the dinosaur people from the other dimension come through and try and kidnap and succeed in kidnapping Princess Daisy. So Mario and Luigi chase her through the portal. And that's where all the shenanigans in the cyberpunk dystopian world began.
Yeah. And, so, I mean, it doesn't, because we have had other stories about Mario. I really wonder where the origin of Mario and Luigi as plumbers from Brooklyn comes from. Because I don't know if it's this movie, but I'm like looking up right now because that's funny enough. Like that's something I never thought of before this moment, is like, when did that originally come from? Because I thought, let's see. Well, it seems like, let's see. Yeah, it does date back to the NES era. And there is a quote from Miyamoto, who created Super Mario, saying, as a kid, I was a big comic fan. I liked foreign comics as well. So I drew characters that were more Western. And with Mario, we had a setting that was underground. So I just decided he was a plumber. Let's put him in New York and he can be Italian. There was really no deeper thought than that. And so apparently, if my 30-second research on the internet can be believed, it does date back to the Mario creator himself, and I thought I had heard something akin to that as well. So that is from the Mario mythos, but it just gets wild from there, right? Where first of all, it's not so much that it's the kind of, I think complete disregard for the characters themselves when it comes just to the color from the very beginning, right? Where Luigi is wearing bright red and Mario is wearing a green coat, and they're wearing opposite colors from their game counterparts until like the end of the film, right? So right from the beginning, you're like, would it have been so hard to like switch jackets, and just kind of have an homage to like the color of their Mario suits, So it's almost seems like they didn't want you to associate those people in the movie with Mario and Luigi yet. This was supposed to be like a Mario and Luigi origin story or something. But it does kind of follow the beats of a lot of the, the Marvel origin story hero things in the future, I suppose. But yeah, it's just bizarre. And like, yeah, Daisy being a princess, sure, that's from Mario. Daisy being an archaeologist who is orphaned as a child in New York from another dimension, all that is definitely some brand new stuff, right? But yeah, it's where to begin. So right from the beginning, what you need to understand is that the majority of time you're seeing our characters on the film, the actors had been drinking, which is important. And I feel comfortable saying that because it's well documented via interviews with nearly all of the main actors in this movie that they drank heavily, on set just to kind of get through the movie, because there were apparently rewrites coming in multiple times a day, even sometimes. And so people just got into the habit of not even looking at the scripts until they got on set and knew they were actually going to be reading the lines that they had they knew that if they read the lines on a previous version, by the time they get the set, they probably would have something new anyway. So that's a good place to start from, I think, when you're going to watch a Mario Brothers film. Everybody who is delivering lines on camera has probably been drinking very recently.
And, if you're Dennis Hopper, probably other things too, given your reputation historically. Although I think he had cleaned himself up. He had cleaned himself up a lot by this time period. But sure. It's Dennis Hopper at the end of the day.
There were reports of other substances being used, in close proximity to the set as well.
And also everybody, Dennis Hopper, John Leguizamo, Bob Hoskins, have all said that the director, which was a husband and wife couple who had created the very famous British television series Max Headroom, were completely horrible to work with and infuriating and very incompetent. And these people never really went on to do anything ever again after the failure of this film. But it seems like it wasn't just how bad it was also the work environment was torturous, and the directors were crazy.
They had done a bunch of music videos basically before they did this. It seemed like, for the most part,
Max
they
Headroom.
did
Max Headroom is
but then
important.
Sure, Max Headroom, but then mostly music videos. They did another movie, funny enough, called DoA, which doesn't relate to the video game franchise or to me, as far as I know. I've never seen it. Maybe it does. But they hadn't done a lot, and they certainly have not done a lot since then. There was a lot of, supposedly there was a lot of interference too from the, upper executives at Nintendo who did, to their discredit, sign off on a, whatever version of the script got this rolling, right? Which, and then, lots of edits, day to day came through afterwards. But Nintendo was kind of heavily involved in this one too. And sure, it did prevent them from making another Nintendo movie for another 30 years after this, but 32 years to be specific. Because the Mario movie came out this year, didn't it? The animated one?
I think it was either this year or last year. Long time, though.
Late last year or early this year, something like that. But either way, Nintendo was involved in the production of this in terms of like reviewing scripts and suggesting changes and approving things. So it seemed, and then the other thing to think about is that this was produced by Disney too, through their Buena Vista Entertainment side of things. And there was supposedly plans to incorporate Nintendo and Mario and all that stuff into like Disneyland going forward if this was a big hit too. So if this movie had been a success, the whole like landscape of entertainment as we know it may have been changed, right? If this was big, then, imagine Mario at Disneyland, right? Obviously now we have Mario at Universal Studios, which happened much, much, much later. But there was a lot riding on this movie, So when it comes out and it doesn't even make half of what it took to it made like 20 million at the box office globally, and it costs like 48 to make if you include the advertising side of things, from what I've read. So it was a mega bomb. Everyone was profoundly embarrassed to be involved, and now of course we can kind of go back and laugh at it, I suppose, a little bit. But there were a lot of good actors in this movie too.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the actors that had very successful careers prior to this that would go on, especially John Leguizamo's very young here, and he would go on to have a very successful career. And so nobody's career was nuked after this. Basically, all of the main characters in this film, Fiona Shaw, Dennis Hopper, they went on to continue working and be very high profile. So it's confusing because they actually assembled a pretty good cast for this movie. And this film also really shows, I think, pretty significant chops in terms of production design. It just, I was looking this up, and the guy who was the production designer for this film, whose name is David Snyder, he actually was the art director for Blade Runner, which makes a lot of sense if you've seen this film, because he did Pee-wee's Big Adventure, he did Blade Runner, so he really was very successful. And I think if you want to talk about what this film does really well, it's that the environment that they make for the film is really cool. The sets are really good, honestly. The effects, the practical effects are really quite accomplished. And especially
really big budget for sure.
Yeah, and especially because this was a dinosaur movie that was coming out literally the same year as Jurassic Park.
Like weeks before Jurassic Park.
Which was
actually
crazy.
Like very close, funny enough. Yeah.
Obviously Jurassic Park looks better and is a much better movie, but it's Spielberg, and that was cutting edge. I mean, Jurassic Park famously was one of the first films to extensively use CGI. When they were making Jurassic Park, they originally thought, hey, we're going to use a form of stop motion animation, but they figured out pretty quickly that CGI was going to be the better thing to use. And they combined the CGI with obviously the practical effects of building the giant T-Rex. But the creatures look pretty good in this movie, especially for something that was going toe to toe with Jurassic Park a few weeks later. Yoshi as the baby T-Rex is, it's not supposed to be as realistic as Jurassic Park, but it is cute. I mean, the way that they do the Goombas, which went from walking mushrooms to
I don't know.
people with tiny dinosaur heads. But I mean, It's a stupid idea, but they did it well. That's the whole thing.
Yeah,
I
like the Goomba.
All the ideas
Goomba
are
costumes.
dumb, but the actual artistic execution of this film is really quite good.
Muster the Goombas! End up the de-evolution guns! Prepare for destiny! Where's my pizza?
Nerd Legion is brought to you by Raycon. If you're looking for a holiday gift, you might check out the Raycon Essential Open Earbuds. That's right. These are earbuds that wrap around your ears and don't enter the ear canal, so you can hear everything going on around you. Have a charging case as well, as you can see right here. Mine are black, but you can get them in a variety of colors. It's perfect for the gym. They won't fall off or when you're out walking. And right now, they're up to 20% off for the holidays, so grab them as a great gift while you can. So these will allow you to hear the environment. So if you like to be a little bit more aware of your surroundings, the Essential Open Earbuds are excellent for that. Raycon has over 3 million customers, and the sound quality is just as good as the way more expensive brands. They're half the price because they're not paying for expensive endorsements and all that retail markup. And if you don't like them for any reason, they have a 30-day guarantee, so you can just go ahead and send them back. But pretty sure you're going to like them. If you don't want those, they also have the Essential Everyday Earbuds. These actually have active noise cancellation, which is really impressive for the price point. I've used them on planes, trains, automobiles, just like that John Candy movie. And I can't really hear anything at all. I've used them on, subway trains heading around Seoul here in Korea. And it's been really comfortable to have on their super small case, so they just slip right in the pocket. And Raycon can also have a multi-point connection, so you can connect to multiple devices and switch seamlessly without hassle. The Essential Open Earbuds are here for the holiday season, and they are selling fast. Raycon audio products are up to 20% off this holiday season. Go to buyraycon.com/nerdlegionopen to save on Raycon audio products site-wide. Order by December 15th to guarantee delivery by Christmas, because great gifts, they shouldn't show up late.
If you took the words Mario Brothers off of this movie and just made it, just tweaked it slightly so that they're, not plumbers, like you just made little changes to take away the, any references to Mario in it, and just made it a movie about two dudes that ended up going to another dimension where dinosaurs had evolved and have to save a princess that like one of them is like kind of got a thing for. Then it would have been just a great quirky 90s movie.
Yeah, exactly. But it could have been basically, and it also would have been much better because they could have made the characters fit the setting more instead of just jamming in, the Mario and Luigi. It feels to me, DoA, almost as though the screenwriters had written some sort of screenplay to capitalize on the popularity of things like Mad Max and Ghostbusters and Blade Runner. And then they got the Mario IP and said to themselves, well, if we just call it Super Mario Brothers, it'll do better in the theaters because people will come to see it based off of the IP and the name.
You would think that, wouldn't you?
I would.
I mean, but it's not correct. That's not what happened. Funny enough, like because you can actually find other drafts of the script for this movie online that were very, very different. There's apparently drafts from like 2 years before this movie came out, which is when you'd be doing scripting for a movie that comes out a little bit later. That would have had Bowser more as a big reptilian guy for most of the movie. That had a bunch of like different characters from the game, different enemies from the game, like chomps and piranha all that kind of stuff in there. There were much more Mario-esque things in the movie in earlier drafts. Apparently, there's a draft where like Luigi does get the raccoon power for a while and stuff, which would have been great to see John Leguizamo in that suit. Maybe someday, right?
With the coonskin cap.
Exactly. Yeah, it'd be great, right? But that's probably all they would do, at that point. But in this movie, so there were the script slowly sort of morphed into what it is now, and what it turned out to be definitely does feel like something that was not Mario and then repurposed to be that. But yeah, funny enough,
regardless,
it was Mario from the beginning.
That's crazy. But also they were clearly trying to cash in on some of these other films and the genre's popularity from, I would say, the late 80s. Going back saying, okay, here, and they got the guy from Blade Runner to do it. So I think clearly they were trying to exploit it and make more of a cyberpunk I mean, as strange as it sounds, cyberpunk Mario film.
I mean, look at those jet boots at the end, man. That's about as cyberpunk as it gets.
I mean, the jet boots,
like low tech cyberpunk, right?
The dystopian city, the de-evolution technology, which, by the way, is how they make Goombas in this movie. So, you and I, having played Mario, might think that a Goomba is like a walking mushroom guy that Mario stomps on. Sure. Well, in this movie, they decide that when Koopa doesn't like somebody, he's going to put them in the de-evolution machine, and it de-evolves them into a giant body, tiny head dinosaur man that is really stupid, and that's what he calls Goombas.
Goombas, yeah. And we said, you mentioned before, but I'm with you. I love the costumes for the Goombas. Their faces they're just so adorable and expressive, and
it's good.
Just great. Like the costumes are great for the Goombas. I love it. Speaking of costumes though, I had it in my headcanon, like I remembered Dennis Hopper being in some sort of like head prosthesis the entire movie where his head actually had like ridges on it and stuff. But so then I watched it this time and I'm like, no, that's just Dennis Hopper and some loose cornrows. That's about it. I really remember it being like makeup, but no, it's just his hair.
I love Dennis Hopper, but he is such a bizarre casting choice for this film. When you're casting a family film, you don't think to yourself, what if I got Frank Booth from Blue Velvet to play King Koopa? Like that? No.
Sure.
He's much too scary and weird for this film.
But like he reminded me, what I thought of when I was watching Dennis Hopper's performance in the Super Mario Brothers film. I thought of Jeremy Irons in the Dungeons and Dragons film, the 2001, where both of these guys are just giving it their all, and they are just 100% chewing up every inch of the scenery, and they are just going to town on every single line, And so I appreciate the commitment, because Dennis Hopper goes all out in this one. And there's a famous interview with him, I think was from Conan O'Brien, if I remember reading it right, where his son had asked him why he did the Super Mario Brothers film, as his son had gotten older and was looking at his father's body of work. And he said Dennis Hopper apparently told his son, as he said, I did it to make sure you had shoes. And his son replied, Dad, I didn't need shoes that badly. So there's and
what a great
I know, right? But what a great line, and all the actors have this kind of like love-hate relationship with the movie. It seems like if you look back at the interviews, a lot of them like to laugh about it now, but at the time there were interviews coming out like before the film even released where they were just like trashing the production just openly. They weren't really even shy about it. Usually you'll see actors be like, oh, it was fun, it was interesting, but like apparently, and I've read a couple of these, they were just trashing it, giving away spoilers, all that kind of stuff. Like there was no love, it seems like, for this movie, aside from just sort of this band of brothers-esque like bonding experience that seemed to happen between them when they were making Mario Brothers, right? So it is wild, but I really do think they give it the. Fiona Shaw is great in this. Actually, I think she gives the best performance in this movie. Yeah, great actress. Her because you might not know the name, but you definitely know her because if you watch the Harry Potter movies, she plays Harry's mean aunt, Petunia.
She's so good in that right? too.
Petunia Dursley. And more recently, you would know her from Disney's Star Wars Andor. She plays Marva Andor in that, and is fantastic in the first season. So just a really, really, really talented actress, and even in a movie like this, I think her performance is notable. You're like, wow, that's good. She's going for it. But interesting note with her, I saw an interview with her that IGN did back when Andor was coming out, and they asked her about Mario. And she said that she has the snake, right, that's kind of like draped over her for a lot of it. And they had her sleep with it before she did the scenes. And when I say sleep with it, what I mean is have it in bed with her while she is sleeping. Apparently have it in a bag with her while she's sleeping because they wanted the snake to get used to her so that it didn't bite her when they wrapped it around her.
Is that a thing with snakes, or did they just make that up?
I don't know. I don't know. That's what she said, and she said it immediately bit her then when they put it on her on set anyway. So she had to sleep with the snake for no reason. And there's also the famous scene. This is the one I was wondering about, and she actually talks about in this interview. There's a scene in the movie where she takes a shot, and there's clearly a live worm in the shot when she takes it, which I don't know why that's in there, but they just did it. And she says that they told her it was a fake worm, but it was in fact a very real, very alive worm. And she didn't know it until it was in her mouth moving around. And they made her do like 3 takes, I guess, of it or something. So, everybody was just having a time making this movie. But that is from the lips of Fiona Shaw herself. I watched the interview earlier today. Amazing.
That is wild. Yeah,
it is, right?
It just, I'm sure the actors all bond over this. It's by the fact that nobody can actually see this movie anymore. It is wild though, because it's not that weird for films that are B movies to be difficult to find, but this was really a very big budget, high production film that is not from 50, 60 years ago. It's from the 90s, and it's so hard to get a hold of now. That's how hard everybody has made it to actually watch this movie. They don't want you to see it, basically.
Well,
and if you do see
especially.
And if you do see it, they want you to buy a physical copy so they get more money.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's our thumbnail, tagline right there. The movie Nintendo doesn't want you to see.
It's true,
but it should also be the movie that you don't want you to see either.
I think it's actually a fascinating relic.
You may regret it, but it is a masterpiece of bad cinema, I think. But what we could have had, Monty, like apparently Tom Hanks was in the running to play Mario, as was I can't remember his name. He played Hook. Or Dustin Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman, yeah.
Was in the running as well. So
hilariously, they just got Smee from Hook to play Mario instead.
I know, right? They had to get one of the future Hook actors. Danny DeVito was apparently Nintendo's top choice to play Mario.
That'd be fun, honestly.
I could see that. Yeah, I mean, this was Danny DeVito in his Batman Returns Penguin era. So imagine that, Danny DeVito. But still, it wouldn't have been a bad choice. But yeah, I know John Leguizamo is a good actor. I will say that's obvious, right? But at the same time, the way he does this movie, I don't know. He delivers every line with his teeth very visibly showing, but never parting. He never really opens his mouth, but he always shows you his teeth. I don't know why it stood out to me, but it was very off-putting with this kind of rictus grin, whenever he's saying a line. I don't know.
I think he does a good job of being rather dopey and the straight man of this movie.
He does everybody does a good job at their role in the movie, but are any of them that character? That's the question. Sure, John Leguizamo does a great job at being that character, but is that character Luigi?
No, but it's not supposed to be.
I don't think so. It is supposed to be. It's in the title of the movie. He's supposed to be one of the Mario brothers.
This was their bizarre. I mean, look, they took all the concepts.
It is a bizarre world.
They took all the concepts, like you said at the start, but they barely applied them. So, instead of the mushroom kingdom is the king has been de-evolved into a fungus, and the fungus has taken over everything in New York City. And that's the mushroom, right? And the bomb is there, but it's just kind of inserted to kill King Koopa randomly, where Mario puts it down and then it just walks around until it hits King Koopa. We talk about King Koopa. He's just he's just literally Dennis Hopper with, like DoA says, loose cornrows. There's nothing kingly about him. He's not.
He's got a long forked tongue. He's got a long forked tongue, but that's about as
they put him in
the
the de-evolution chamber, but it doesn't do anything to him, really.
Yeah, I was confused about that. It makes his face go all funny for a moment, but it doesn't really have any effect on him.
Yeah, there's references to Mario Brothers, Easter eggs scattered throughout the film, outside the Boom Boom bar that they go to. There's a sign that says Hammer Brothers, but that's it.
There's one that's it says Fry Guys Wanted, and it's an advertisement looking for cooks for this bar or whatever. But of course, it's a reference to Shy Guys in Mario. So there's things here and there. There's thwomp, imagery here and there too, but it's just really weird. I mean, can we get to the scene in the like nightclub?
Yeah, sure. There's so many scenes.
There's that. There's a scene in a nightclub that, according to an interview with George Leguizamo, they just hired a bunch of strippers from the area to just be in this scene and just be dancing, and they all wore things you would expect strippers to wear, at their job, before they take them off, at this club. And apparently that caused a lot of problems in post-production because they had to edit around things and blur things out and CGI things to be more, decent, because this is supposed to be a family film. If you can believe it, it's PG, but this was kind of very much in the era of like kids love gross out stuff. There was like this period of time in the 90s where it was all about like slime and mucus and like gross things and everything should be dirty because people thought that's what kids loved. And this movie is like very much like one of the prime, I think, products of that, It's hard to describe if you didn't live during that time and remember the advertisements and the toys and all that. It was like, this was the era that Nickelodeon Gak came out, right?
Yeah.
And sliming people and all that stuff. So it was like a very like gross out kind of era for like kids content.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough.
Yeah. I mean, that was all about the 90s, and like it definitely reeks of that, but also there's no real resolution to a lot of the gross out stuff. So the Mushroom Kingdom, we find out that Daisy's father has been de-evolved into fungus, and then he just reappears at the end for no reason, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I don't know what was like Dennis Hopper's life force keeping him from doing that. And the funny thing is he turns into, I forget the guy's name now, but it's the guy who plays Bishop in Aliens. He's been in he was in Terminator and Predator and all those movies and all that. I'm trying to remember the name right now. What was his name again? But you would know him.
It should be Lance Henriksen.
Yeah, Lance Henriksen. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, so it just appears as Lance Henriksen at the end. You're like, oh, hey, I guess you were the king all along. Who knew, Yep, so there's another thing where you're just like, well, inexplicably this happened. But, when you're watching the movie, you can tell that they had a lot of problems editing it. They shot a lot of stuff, and then rewrites came in, and they had to reshoot, or they had to just sort of like edit around the reshoots, to make a scene work. There's scenes that just like end. Like there's one scene where Daisy is talking to the other like women who've been captured from Brooklyn because Iggy and Spike thought that they were princesses, and the scene just like ends like mid-sentence basically with no real resolution to the conversation. There's things like the de-evolution chamber scene where suddenly they're slipping and sliding on a puddle of goo that just like was not there, and there's no explanation for why it appears. The reason is because there's a deleted scene where one of the technicians operating that stuff gets turned into goo, but that's not in the theatrical cut. So we just see all this stuff happening, and suddenly King Koopa is slipping on this like big puddle of goo in the floor for no reason. So there was a lot. The editing got really, really funky too, because of all the rewrites and reshoots.
We were talking before we started this, and Spike and Iggy, who are incompetent. So first off, they're idiots, and so their stupidity is played up for comedy. Then they actually are super evolved, but they don't actually get smarter. They just use longer words and sentences. They're still equally incompetent as to what they were before. But there's actually a deleted scene from the extended cut in the Boom Boom Bar where they start rapping about how they're going to overthrow King Koopa, because in the film, there's no explanation as to why they start to help the Mario brothers and defy King Koopa. But that plot point, I'm not going to say it's explained, but there is a cringe rap, revolutionary rap that was deleted from the final cut of the film, but it still exists. People have found it. Apparently this longer cut existed on some lost VHS tape, and so now it has been released for everyone to enjoy. But that's in there.
That's great. We got to put the link to that down below too.
But nothing, like you say, DoA, because in the theatrical release, nothing actually makes sense in this film because the plot lines don't add up. It's just one random scene after another, and there's never actually really any conclusion to really any of the plot points. Even by the end of this film, they go back to their version of New York, and Daisy busts in saying that she needs the help of the Mario Brothers. I can't imagine why they thought they were going to get a sequel to this film, DoA, but they just leave an open-ended ending where they're watching their success on the news, and then she comes and she's like, I need your help. And then the movie ends.
Yep, that's right. They're gonna go and maybe it's Wario or something like that. Here's my off the cuff sequel for the Super Mario Brothers 1995 film. So when the interdimensional travel happened, an evil version of Bob Hoskins' Mario was somehow created and somehow left behind in the other dimension, and he was able to raise an army and start to rebel against the goodly rule of Princess Daisy, and now they must go back and fight not only Wario, but his other alternate dimension doppelganger Waluigi as well. So that would be where I would take the sequel to this film if I were to write it.
What were your favorite?
It makes a lot of sense.
What are your favorite moments from this movie, though? Because one of my favorite themes of the Super Mario Brothers movie is dancing, where Mario has to dance with Big Bertha, the bouncer of the Boom Boom Room, in order to seduce her to steal the piece of the meteorite back, which she has stolen. Also, when they're in the Koopa compound or the Koopa Tower, whatever it is, and the Goombas are getting into the elevator, Luigi starts dancing with the Goombas to distract them, but it's never really explained why the dancing would distract the Goombas, but he gets it.
Why does this work?
Why does this work?
So dumb.
So he starts dancing with the Goombas, and then the Goombas start dancing in the elevator, and then they escape out a hatch in the roof, but they could have just left the hatch in the roof at any point in time without the Goombas dancing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I guess I could have just gotten out the hatch any time, but I think that is an iconic scene where they just get the Goombas to dance, because it is just such a great showcase of all the Goomba costumes, and they made so many of these Goomba costumes. I can't imagine what that costs, but they made a lot of them, and they're great, and that's a fun scene.
It's well known that the Super Mario Brothers movie from 1993 kind of sucks. And I hate to say it, but your current wireless plan might kind of suck too. The problem is, if you were like me, you're paying a lot of money for wireless coverage, even though you mostly use Wi-Fi, either because you work from home or you're bouncing from coffee shop to coffee shop. So there's no need to pay huge wireless bills, especially when you can get Mint Mobile. And all Mint Mobile plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network anyway. All you have to do is bring your phone over, you connect it to Mint Mobile, and you port your phone number. Super easy if you guys have an eSIM, or they'll mail you a physical SIM if you want that. There's no contracts and no nonsense. And now is the best time of year to do it, because for the holidays, all of Mint Mobile's unlimited plans are 50% off. You can get a 3, 6, or 12 months of unlimited premium wireless for only $15 a month. It's their best deal of the year. So if you've got some time off over these holidays, think you might spend it switching over. You'll be happier if you did. Plus, they have tons of international coverage options as well. All you have to do is pick a duration of their international pass on their website, which is what I do, and you'll get 5G in countries all over the world. So it's a great time to switch up your wireless, cut those bills heading into the New Year's. Maybe your New Year's resolution to save some money. Now's a great time to do it. You can turn your expensive wireless present into a huge wireless savings future by switching to Mint. Shop Mint Unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/nerd, N-E-R-D. That's mintmobile.com/nerd. Limited time offer, upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required, which is the equivalent of $15 a month. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan terms apply, or initial plan term only. Greater than 35 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com for details.
The Big Bertha scene, getting the crystal piece back in the boom boom room.
It's the boom boom bar. See, they should have called it the boom boom room, but that might have been actually copyrighted because it's a famous jazz bar, guys, in real life.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought that
but why would you
like
not call it the boom boom room, which is the correct name if you're going to have boom boom as your name of your bar? So it's just called the boom boom bar, but yes.
Or why would you not call it the Babam bar if you're going to use the word bar? Because that's too close to Mario, I guess. But you're going to use the Babam later anyway. But yeah, I mean, again, imagine little DoA, little 11-year-old DoA watching this movie, thinking he's going to watch a Super Mario Brothers film, and then seeing this like middle-aged man trying to fish a piece of crystal out of this large woman's ample cleavage and just being like, I didn't sign up for this.
Also, the meteorite has nothing to do with Mario, so you're just confused by the central plot point. The central MacGuffin is very weird.
I would say something like, something that another internet, personality might, if I was like a real YouTuber or something, I'd be like, oh, that scene made me feel something. But it really didn't, because I was just overwhelmed by the feeling of confusion that I mentioned earlier through the whole thing. So when that was happening, I was like, well, I didn't expect that. But that's not Mario. Why is Mario doing that? Why is this person who I'm supposed to believe is Mario doing this? And then why is she giving him rocket boots?
And why is
helping this happening
after mugging them for the crystal in the beginning? Because her motivations
because she heard the rap.
Oh, right.
Because she thinks Mario is sexy. That's why she's physically attracted to Bob Hoskins' Mario.
At least
especially after he does that thing with his teeth and the crystal, and her ample bosoms, and that's more. I've said that phrase more in this episode than I ever thought I'd say it in my life. But maybe that's why she was just really turned on by his dancing skills. By the way, where did they get those suits? How did they get those suits?
Oh, the ones where they just appeared in the tower with their iconic like Mario suits.
Oh no!
You mean the yellow suits?
That too.
Yeah, the costumes are never explained.
But the red and yellow suits, or it's kind of like a crimson and yellow suits, like the suits they wear to the boom bar.
Also, a really good opportunity for them to wear red and green, and yet Luigi is dressed in the red suit, and Mario is dressed in the yellow suit, and then so they inexplicably get those suits. Which I mean, they're going to a club. I understand that part, but what I don't understand, though, is when they leave to go to King Koopa's tower, they just show up in their plumber suits, in the red and green plumber suit. Where did those come from?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like at that point in the movie, Iggy and Spike are supplying them. They're getting them what they need. They're helping them out. And we do know, especially Iggy, Fisher Stevens Iggy looks like a character right out of The Matrix. 6 years before The Matrix was released. But so I would imagine he has a connection to get some pretty, cool suits, cool clothes. That's my guess. That Iggy's supplying him. But I mean, that seriously though, that first scene with Iggy, like he looks like a character from The Matrix. Like the sunglasses, the hair, the suit, everything is just. He was Lawrence Fishburne's Morpheus before Lawrence Fishburne was Morpheus. Especially after he gets smart.
It's just wild.
That's my explanation anyway. So yeah, I mean, it all goes back to just like, what were they thinking in terms of making it so different? It was this idea that we could take this beloved game franchise and name recognition and then kind of like do whatever they wanted with it. And they just thought that that would be okay, that would work out because it's Mario, clearly it didn't, but it's just so strange. I wonder how much of it is just, production woes and craziness, and how much of it is just hubris that they thought that they could make this and people would like it. I don't know.
I mean, very curious. It's deeply confusing.
It is.
I have no idea why this film came out. I have no idea why they tried so hard to acquire, because apparently the main producer, Roland Joffe, like really petitioned Nintendo hard to get this IP. And Nintendo at the time, I guess, felt that it was okay to let somebody else use their IP, or that there wasn't going to be a major downside. But I think the problem is that, to my knowledge, Nintendo has, we talked about how it took over 30 years for them to make another Super Mario movie, which is incredible, frankly. But also, they have, to my knowledge, never made another live action movie up until the Legend of Zelda movie that's coming out in 2027. So there is a live action Zelda movie coming out, but that will be, as far as I'm aware, the first Nintendo IP to have a live action film since this one in 1993, which is, it's almost mind-boggling if you think about the sheer number of video game adaptations that have taken place, and the fact that Nintendo has very, iconic and popular IPs.
They have very difficult to film IPs, though. Like, what are you going to make a movie out of? Like, there's Mario, there's like Kirby. Sure, you could make and there were cartoons and things of all this stuff, right? Cartoons was the realm of like Nintendo content for like a long time, right? But live action, a lot of it just doesn't work. Imagine like a Kirby live action film, you know?
Here's some. Like, first off, you could have already done a Zelda live action with current technology.
Zelda's really the only one, I think.
Metroid?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Metroid could work. Sure.
I think Metroid would be a huge one for them.
Sure.
Star Fox?
Yeah,
not
that
live
one
action.
Is on the edge.
Not live action, but you could have
edge.
made an animated movie out of Star Fox for sure.
I'd like to see a live action Star Fox film. Just a bunch of, a bunch of great animatronic heads, No,
but you can absolutely make more stuff, an animated film based off of Star Fox that probably could have been interesting. And I think maybe the 90s was the wrong time to do this, just given technological limits. But I do think that starting in the 2010s, it was probably possible to do Zelda, Metroid as live action franchises.
For sure. Yeah. They were just so scared off of doing live action, apparently, for a long time. And why wouldn't you be, right? But it is kind of funny, like 30 years, like I only probably a fraction of the people that were at Nintendo back then still are at Nintendo, when this one came out, when the one came out recently, the Illumination, I think, made it or something.
Yeah. So, I think rightfully so, after this, Nintendo became very cagey with the IPs that they were willing to let out. And also, I would say, just the history of other Japanese developers releasing their IP. Like, look at 6 Resident Evil movies. All of the fighting Sonic the Hedgehog, all the fighting game movies that came out. There have been tons of Japanese companies that have let Hollywood use their IPs. Mostly to terrible effect, if we're being honest. Like, up until, I would say,
getting better
very recently, most Japanese IPs have just been abused at the hands of Hollywood.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. Right. Then it has gotten better lately. I think the Sonic the Hedgehog live action films are pretty great, actually.
Yeah, those are very recent, though. That's the thing.
Right. Yeah. So I'm agreeing with you. Is that the more recent ones are good, and the Sonic ones are a good example.
I do think that the Street Fighter movie is actually better than people give it credit for, and also parts of it have like aged really well. It has some iconic lines. It has some
the Raul Julia one.
Oh yeah, such a banger. Yeah.
It's funny. I say Raul Julia, which really supposed to be the Jean-Claude Van Damme one, but but
he's the best character in that
stands
movie.
Out with
I watch a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, and he's an amazing kickboxer, and I love him for that, but he is hands down one of the worst actors I have ever seen, which is why Bloodsport is great. But that's him doing amazing kickboxing things. Anytime he is required to act, it is a tragedy.
I'll talk about that one later. Ming-Na Wen is Chun-Li. He's great in that too. That's another one. But yeah, so the movie ends like we talked about with the crystal and the meteor. Fiona Shaw's character tries to put the crystal in, and she's not a princess, so she gets like electrocuted and blown up. Again, kids film. Electrocuted, thrown to a wall, she turns into a skeleton, like kind of a fossilized skeleton, I guess. Only her hair is also fossilized, which I guess if it happens quick enough, scientists in the chat, do you know if that's possible? Who knows?
If it was in mud, the imprint of her hair might fossilize. So
I guess, but it was solid stone, and she was electrocuted. So who knows? King Koopa he gets blown up into a bucket. Then he comes out and he's a dinosaur. Then he gets zapped and he turns into goo. So that's the end of him. It sounds like I just had a stroke, but that's actually just like what happened to him. You know?
Was he a king or was he a president, by the way? I was confused because sometimes they call him King Koopa and sometimes they call him President Koopa. Which is it?
Kind of both. Apparently their world 2 is supposed to be called Dino York, and it was referred to as Dino York for the first like 8 weeks of production, and then they changed the name to Dino-Hatton and had to go back and like change a bunch of things. Just stuff like that. Where it's like, why would you change it once you've already settled on Dino York?
And also, it's not materially
They're both
different.
bad. They're both completely stupid names to call your Dino New York, you know? So just give up. Just pick one. Yeah.
Insane.
What about New York?
There you go.
Yeah. And they're dinosaurs. So kind of evolved dinosaurs.
Also, I just love how they had the Statue of Liberty there, as if in the parallel dimension that evolved from dinos, they would still have the Statue of Liberty and like the Twin Towers in the background. I was just confused by the rules of what's different and what isn't.
Oh no, there's an explanation for this in a deleted scene actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where there is an extended chase scene with King Koopa chasing Daisy's mother at the beginning, you know, where she drops off the egg that contains Daisy at the nunnery. And I think that's the official term.
Yep.
And apparently in the deleted scene, Dennis Hopper's King Koopa looks around New York and really admires the buildings and things. So anything that resembles New York is because he liked what he saw and then rebuilt it in formerly Dino York, now known as Dino-Hatton. So that's the explanation for why you would see the Statue of Liberty there.
Okay.
It's not because the French helped bail Dino York out from the Dino British. It's because you know, King Koopa saw the Statue of Liberty and wanted a copy of it in his city.
He's got a really good memory, I'll say that.
Again, it sounds like I was having a stroke when I was saying those sentences, but that's actually stuff that pertains to the film we're talking about.
Wild.
I know, right?
Well, I hope you guys, I hope you guys actually watch this, because it's just an experience.
It is worth watching. It is. And again, like, I would recommend just go watch the Riff Tracks version. The commentary is really funny. You still get the full movie. You don't miss anything. You just get this added kind of humor thrown in. But if you just watch it, you're going to be yelling things at the screen anyway. So you're going to have a similar experience. But
you should probably also be drunk like John Leguizamo and Bob Hoskins when they were watching, when they were filming this movie, because it was made drunk and it should be consumed drunk.
I would highly recommend this. I was imbibing some fine Brother Justice Minnesota whiskey. Hey, Brother Justice, if you want to sponsor the show, reach out. Love your stuff. Help me get through Mario Brothers again. That's great.
So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. We will see you next week. Till then.